In the state of Pennsylvania, on the outskirts of a city called Pittsburgh, you will discover the engine room of the American dream. It was here 125 years ago that they began the mass production of steel as America moved to replace Britain as the greatest industrial force on earth. Pittsburgh became the steel capital of the world. Today, Pittsburgh still produces 1/5 of all American steel, in an industry which, according to a fundamental tenet of the American way, remains in private ownership. But the fall in demand for steel, which afflicted the entire Western world, has not left Pittsburgh untouched. To maintain profits, the steel corporations diverted into other industries and divested themselves of unwanted mills. Even so, at the start of this decade, there were still 80,000 steel workers in Pittsburgh. They had become the blue-collar elite of America, with salaries of up to $30,000 or even $40,000 a year. But in 3 years, half the jobs have gone, and it's not yet over. In communities like Homestead, most of the steelmen have now been without work for 2 years or more.
You receiving public assistance?
Are you on unemployment?
Food stamps?
No.
Medical coverage?
These are some of the 30,000 men who've lost their jobs in Steel Valley. They're here to collect charity and to state their plight for the record.
Okay. When did you get laid off?
January 2nd, 1982.
You receiving unemployment?
Due to your income, have you been skipping meals? Are you able to buy the necessary food to have a balanced diet? Do you have any other income, like a part-time job?
No medical assistance.
No.
Due to your income, have you been skipping meals?
How many are you?
Due to your income, have you been skipping mills?
Are you able to
Sometimes.
After 2 years, they are no longer entitled to the dole. Most of them have no income at all. The rest are on welfare, which is not enough to support their families.
Medical coverage, yes.
Yeah.
Do you have any other income, like a part-time job? Medical?
It's been 3 years.
Do you have any medical coverage? You have medical assistance,
Medical
right?
assistance,
Due to your income, have you been skipping meals?
yes.
Are you able to buy the necessary food to have a balanced diet?
Throughout the valley, 80,000 people a month come to relief centres like this to collect a food parcel worth $10, the unsold surplus from local supermarkets. The main street in Homestead, 1984. The dream had not been unworthy. A secure job, a home of your own, 2 weeks holiday, savings in the bank, and a future for your children in a country blessed by God. It almost came true. The streets were crowded, the shops were full, the churches built. Homestead flourished. Then the decline, now the collapse, and the only way out is to leave. Not so easy. The cemetery in Homestead marks the names of those who for 100 years toiled in the mills to make the dream come true. But Homestead was not just a dormitory for workers. The immigrants who came from Europe to Pittsburgh in the last century were the great-grandfathers of those who are now without work. They came from Germany, Ireland, Poland, Hungary, and Italy to create in Homestead the homes they had lost in the old world. And they became Americans, committed to the American way, to the belief that capitalism and freedom and opportunity were indivisible. They loved America. Now Homestead is in shock at the loss of the future, the dream, and all that this meant.
Success in whatever you did, whatever you looked for. A home, a car, something in the bank.
Retiring at 50.
Yeah, retiring at 50, 30 years in U.S. Steel and gone. You know, it's a phrase that I think we all, well, every American grew up with. It's something that I guess society in America based on. You know, it was always the American dream for someone to start a business or go into business or get into some type of a work that you would be fluent with, and you would, I guess, do progress, have progress in it.
What does the dream mean to you now?
Staying alive.
Tom, Marlene, and their 2 children are hoping to find work elsewhere, like 30,000 others, like Gary and Julie, like Marlene and Glenn Marshall. Glenn, who was in the mill for 17 years, can hardly believe that it's happened.
It hurts. I mean, I didn't mind getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and going to work. I started at 5. I mean, it was a good job, steady job. Now nothing. There's jobs. Everybody around here is looking for a job. I believe there's 1, 2, 3 people on this street. This whole hill here is working.
In Steel Valley, your own home became an essential part of your self-respect and your security, never to be surrendered, a fact which now poses an acute dilemma. To qualify for welfare, your assets must not exceed $1,000, which means spending what you've saved. If you own a home, you can keep it, but it's treated as security against your welfare checks, which become a loan to be repaid when you sell up or move on. The alternatives? No house tomorrow or destitution today. There is much despair.
You promise. 10 a.m. Tomorrow you call, you find out that information. All right, hon? All right. Bye-bye.
In Homestead, there is no government center to help, only the union and a handful of church workers like Marilyn Grady.
Is your heat still on?
No, they shut that off.
You have no heat?
I have kerosene heater, but I have no gas.
Your utilities were shut off.
Yeah.
The temperature here frequently falls to -20 Fahrenheit.
On welfare right now.
Okay. What's the amount that you and your husband receive per month?
Well, I won't get it until the 14th.
Is this every 3 months?
It's for 90 days that you can get it.
All right.
It's 130 every 2 weeks.
For 90 days.
Yeah, and the
And then
food
what?
stamps, I'm not quite sure what they are.
All right, so you get $260
a month
for 3 months, and then you get nothing.
Nothing at all.
Welfare for 3 months, and then a stop on medical cover.
Switch cards on you. Did you know that? Did they tell you that?
No.
Yes. They will give you a green card, which will mean that if you're at death's door, they will pay for it. Other than that, you do not get any medical assistance. Under the blue card, you get all your drugs and things like that taken care of, but under the green card, you only get emergency hospital care. All right? And that will change when you go off. Now, did they explain to you why you only have a 90-day allotment coming?
No.
Your age. Between 18 and 45.
I was down there at a meeting. They had a lady that was 62 years old on Social Security.
That's right.
And all she was getting was food stamps. Do you know they expected that woman to go out and look for work?
Uh-huh.
Isn't that terrible?
Well, that's pretty typical, though. I mean, that's pretty much what they do. But you fall into an age category where they expect that you are workable, that you can find work. All right, now, why did you come to me today? What do you need most?
Food, really.
All right. Because you have not received any food stamps. When was the last time you purchased food? Be honest with me.
My sister had took me shopping maybe about 2 weeks ago.
All right.
Got a lot of canned stuff and, stuff like that would last.
All right. I do have food for you today. I can do that for you. It won't be much, but it'll be staples. All right. There isn't any meat available.
There remain 2,000 jobs in the mill, but they too are under threat. So far, the union has opposed closures in principle, but agreed terms in practice. Most workers believe there's no other choice.
Well, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There is some resistance.
A lot of people want to know why we called this meeting. I think we have a lot of problems in the plant. I said last week that I give this plant the end of the year to be still here, unless we start fighting. We might not save it, but we're not going down without a fight.
A few activists and their allies in bitter opposition to official union policy seek to arrest the inevitable.
About time we start fighting. We're the richest country in the world, and we have people starving. Is that right? No, it's not. I'd like to introduce Jim Von Drill.
Their principal ally is the local priest.
Who is the enemy? U.S. Steel? Who else? Corporations? Who else? Reagan? Who else? They're
Politicians.
Politicians?
Get rid of all the politicians that have jobs now. Throw everybody new in.
All right. That's not a bad idea.
Get Hines out of there. He got to go.
All right. So they're going to literally change over the valley. They don't want your steel mills here. If you owned a 30-foot motorboat, would you like to go up and down the Mon River and see steel mills and coal barges? No. So they're going to get rid of your mills so the rich can have their play place here. So if you struck now, they'd say, glory, hallelujah, we're going to shut it down anyhow.
This is not revolution, nor even a challenge to the principles of the marketplace. Instead, they propose to assault the conscience of Pittsburgh, hoping to shame the corporations into saving their jobs.
They go to church on Sunday morning, and the reverend gets up there and blesses them and says, oh, you've done a good work this week. And meanwhile, you're sitting here, you and your friends and your family have lost your jobs, or are going to lose your jobs. You're going to be put out on the street.
A little upriver from Homestead is the corporate heart of Pittsburgh, a financial and investment center which they call Renaissance City. It's there you find the headquarters of U.S. Steel, where the decisions to close were made.
I am a product of the Great Depression of the 30s, and I grew up right here in the city of Pittsburgh. My father was a postal worker. I did not grow up with a silver spoon. Do I know what depressions and recessions and layoffs? Of course I do. And I see them, I understand them, I know they're painful. It would be much more painful if you, in effect, tried to pretend they were not there.
If the price of profitable continuity to your shareholders is a lot of steel workers out of work, that is just bad luck for them, in effect, in truth.
That is right. That's part of the free enterprise system. In other words, if workers are not needed in a particular market, it is short-sighted and foolish to pretend they are. You're not doing them a favor long term, and you're burdening your economy with really a cost that should be avoided.
Pittsburgh is not in ruins. On the contrary, there are jobs and good ones too. The city, which was built on steel, is now under reconstruction as a center for the next century, with new universities, hospitals, high-tech companies, and the services to make it work. But those dreams barely touch the community which crouches under the shadow of the Renaissance Center. The American dream has always excluded the majority of what are now called the minorities. Almost a third of the citizens of Pittsburgh are black, and 50,000 of them are out of work, 37%. Statistics for the nation show that half of all black families live in broken homes. Half the children are below the poverty line, half the teenagers out of work. As elsewhere, the soup kitchen has made a comeback in Pittsburgh. there are now 12 in the city, feeding 10,000 people who would otherwise go hungry. Although there are 8 million people without work in America, the belief is still widespread that you have a choice, that if you want work, you can always find it. That belief underpins a welfare system that fails to protect the downtrodden. Once, the steelmen would have described those in need here as welfare bums. No longer. The other Pittsburgh has energy and optimism.
Welcome to the smoking room of the most exclusive club in Pittsburgh. The Duquesne costs $4,000 to join. That's if you're selected from what to the ambitious must seem the interminably long waiting list. The 1,500 or so active members of the club come from the corporate elite of the city. The chairman, vice presidents, presidents, chief executives. Thus, it's presumed that in this congenial and discreet atmosphere, although there are no statistics on the subject, under the benevolent gaze of their predecessors, that the principal topic of discourse here is the dollar.
The more time goes by, of course, the more time there is for politics to be involved.
Upstairs, a meeting of the most powerful men in Pittsburgh.
Because I think Pittsburgh needs that kind of victory.
These are the chief executives of the biggest corporations in the city. They call themselves the Allegheny Conference. They have pervasive, even decisive influence over the future of Pittsburgh.
Discussed last month in an effort to bring a report and suggested procedure, including amount to be raised.
The combined assets of their companies total more than $120,000 million.
Recess of meetings.
Connie, are we likely to go public on any of this before fall?
I'm answering that now off the cuff. My suggestion would
Their power is to shape the Renaissance city to the needs of corporate America.
Which hopefully, and I guess timing looks good right now, will be for the annual meeting as usual in early November, that is, or late November. All right?
The most powerful institution in Pittsburgh is the Mellon Bank. Assets, $26 billion. Mellon has a share in most of the major corporations in the city, including U.S. Steel. The bank was founded here 115 years ago, in the manner of the American dream, according to the principles of the American way, by one man, Thomas Mellon.
Thomas Mellon handed over to his two sons, Richard and Andrew, who, at least in the bank's own evaluation, were great public benefactors, endowed, so it is said, with a vision that gave them supreme confidence in the future of their country. They were certainly good bankers. Today, the name Mellon is synonymous in Pittsburgh with great wealth and great power.
My dream for Pittsburgh would be that Pittsburgh can evolve to be as actively a participant in the successful participant in the economy of tomorrow as it's been in the economies of the past.
Does that mean changing Pittsburgh's image, in effect, from a blue-collar city to a white-collar city?
That's probably the reality that's been playing out perhaps since the turn of the century, and probably at an accelerating rate in the last 10 or 20 years.
Does that make the steel workers who helped create the wealth of this city something of an embarrassment to the image and the prospect?
I think embarrassment's not a good, not really the appropriate term.
What would be the appropriate term?
The unemployed steel worker in Pittsburgh is the same sort of a social problem, and of course people say problems are opportunities, is the same sort of a social problem that exists worldwide. So I don't think they're an embarrassment for the community. I think they are a problem.
In truth, you've got 10, 20, maybe 30,000 steel workers out of work in that valley. They're going to stay out of work for a very long time. Do you advise them to leave the valley and go elsewhere in search of work? There's not the jobs for them in Pittsburgh. They're not trained for the jobs in Pittsburgh.
Well, these societal problems are very difficult here and in the world. I mean, as you know, this is a microcosm of a broader world problem.
How do you advise them in this particular predicament?
I guess that one has to be very... it's a point in life when people have to make some very hard choices.
Huh? Where's that quote at? Where's the quote at?
That's 5
5 level.
The melons are back. $1 million.
Oh, the melons are
For
back?
real, honest to God.
In the trading room, they buy and sell dollars to finance investment around the world. They deal in hundreds and thousands of millions, oiling an American economy which has bounced out of recession into boom.
5/8. 5/8, 11.
5/8.
This America is confident, aggressive, ruthless, and daring.
5/8, 11 a little later this afternoon. 5/8 most of the time.
It believes, without question, that capitalism is the only way to the American dream. It believes in winners, not losers.
If you need them cash, I might be able to get them.
And when they're not as strong as they can be, the market may have
Yes. Shade.
Of course, Boston's trying.
The American dream is dependent upon the free enterprise system, as you put it, the market economy, capitalism. Is it possible to have the American dream without you being in all parts of the world to bring that dream home?
No, probably not, because, again, the marketplace, the so-called free market society, again, demands an ever-expanding market and the ability to serve it. And I think that's what's necessary to, in effect, develop the whole world into a growth, raise the standard of living throughout the world. You can't build barriers to where people can't make their products available in other parts of the world. And if your dream stops at the border, your opportunities are going to stop at the border, and the chance to achieve that better life are probably going to remain a dream rather than a reality.
U.S. Steel, like the other corporations in Pittsburgh, has not stayed at home. Altogether, this one city combines to invest through 96 major companies in more than 50 countries in every continent. It is sharp competition, much of it unpredictable high risk. But corporate America also discerns a deeper threat, against which it is always on guard.
Well, I think the principal threat to the free enterprise system, not just to Americans, but to people who believe in the system all over the world, is clearly one of a totalitarian type state such as Russia or Cuba, where they will not permit a free enterprise economy to work. They want a controlled economy, a planned economy, rather than a free economy. That's the greatest threat.
Is there a sense in which a president conducting a good national security policy is protecting your vision of the American dream?
No, I think that the national security policy is really not to protect the American way of life. I think as far as the free enterprise, I think that our total defense orientation is to defend freedom, to in effect defend, to make sure that people have the right to be free, to elect their own way of life, to elect their own officials, and not have a system imposed on them such as you have in Russia and these other controlled societies. So I would say our national defense is for the maintenance of freedom, not for the maintenance of the free enterprise system.
But freedom is dependent upon the free enterprise system, in
They
your
are,
view.
they are interlocked because if you begin to impinge on free enterprise, you begin to limit that freedom. You begin to restrict it.
For Pittsburgh, as for the rest of the country, the choice was made long ago. There is one way, and one way only, to preserve the dream. And that's the American way, with winners and losers.
Denny, Marilyn, what's up with you? I thought you were going to call me back. The other day when you asked me about the Social Security thing. Okay, what have you done about it? Yeah, but who told you that? Well, some kid isn't going to get it for you. Are you going to go down there and do it? Anything about it? Come on, Dennis, now stop slipping. You're slipping. I don't want you to do that. Do you understand me? Because if something happens on Social Security, you're going to be down the tubes, you know?